Hello everybody, it is Narrative Tarot. I'm here for Venus, May 2021. So comment, like, subscribe to the channel. I do monthly readings and they're by planet, so they're for people who have significant transits or aspects to their Venus sign. Venus is currently in Taurus, if I am not mistaken, and so this is for the month of May, but because we're starting in April before Taurus season, it may carry over. So definitely check out the rest of the planet videos if you have significant transits or you're interested in kind of what the energy surrounding a specific one is. This isn't really a love reading. This isn't anything like that. This is just general energies and advice. So if you're looking for that, these are not the videos for you. So yeah, even though it's Venus, that doesn't mean that what's coming out is going to be like love. So let's start at this a first part to the reading, and then there's a second part to the reading. I'll definitely link the Taurus season video for you guys because Taurus is ruled by Venus as well as Libra, is exalted in Pisces, and in fall in Virgo, detriment in Scorpio and Aries. Okay, so the upper world is this, which is the Prince of Cups. I have to look at it. And the lower world is the Seven of Cups. So not being a slave to anything or anyone would be really great for you guys in the month of May. So we're using the Cosmic Tarot for the first reading. So not being a slave to anything, not being a slave to your desires, not being a slave to your ambitions, not being a slave to others' desires and ambitions, making sure that everything that you do is of your own, making sure that everything you say is of your own, everything that you are is of your own, not in a I did everything on my own kind of way, but that acknowledging that you are an individual in society and that you have your own way of being, your own way of looking at the world, things like that. You are not your mom, your dad, your cousin, your sister, your teacher, the guy that like flipped you off when you were driving. You are your own person. We do have connection to everything and everyone, but you are still living as an individual, right? You know, you have your own job, your own bank account, your own bills to pay, your own emotional journey, your own emotions and psychology and psyche to look after. And so Prince of Cups, even though it's not the King of Cups, which would more likely be the highest point that you can reach, we are just starting May essentially, and so you have the entire month to kind of reach that. You have the entire month to get to the King of Cups, or it's a journey that's longer than that. So the Prince of Cups is the beginning of understanding that. I kind of see at the beginning of understanding it. It may come from an event in which people are trying to tell you that you are like pressed to them in some way. They are cleaved to you in some way, and that gives them some sort of power over you. And it may be a few instances or people that show your interdependence, and the thing is to show that the thing that you need to learn is that you're not dependent, you're very interdependent, that you do give something to get something, that you do have value, that you do have your own rewards that you give to people, your own rewards that you receive from people. Because it can go, if Venus isn't evolving, they tend to be a slave to materialism, or a slave to not merging with people because you think you don't want to be taken advantage of and stuff like that, and that's like a trauma that needs to be worked through. I have a Venus in Taurus, so I like talking about Venus. But then on the flip side is that when you're trying to elevate yourself with that Venus and Pisces, that transcendent nature where things maybe kind of blend together, there's this idea that you should accept anything and everything, and that the Seven of Cups, any cup that comes your way, you should accept because it's a cup, and at least you have a cup. And if you have a cup, you're in the game. If you're in the game, you can transcend. If you can transcend, then you can do all of these wonderful things. But you need to learn, and this is a water and earth sign thing, you need to learn discernment, especially between things that come into your life and the reason you're allowing them, the reason you're going out for things in your life. Why are you doing that? So definitely make sure with the Seven of Cups that in the lower world that you aren't bending over backwards for people or listening to lies and deceit. So I definitely will link the Taurus season video for you, because this kind of is related, and I knew that it would be because we're starting with Venus and Taurus is ruled by Venus. So just making sure that you're aware of it, making sure that you're not acting out, because this Prince of Cups is quite angry looking. I think there may be some things of, I let this person or this place or this thing or something like that like get the best of me, and that's where that like Venus and Aries and Venus and Scorpio, which are ruled by, traditionally Scorpio's ruled by Mars, like that energy comes through, trying to prove oneself as being an individual, trying to prove oneself as being independent, trying to prove oneself as not needing anybody. That is something that comes from the idea that to interrelate means to lose oneself. This is something I'm thinking about with women's rights a lot. What exactly does that mean? What exactly does that mean for women? And that's a whole nother project. So if you want to look into that, shameless plug, really shameless plug. I have no, like, I started this channel and I started that project. So shameless plug, you can go to The Red, which is a website that I have, or thered.weebly.com, and I'm going to start using that space to discuss things like this. But back to this, there shouldn't be any vengeful lash back. Just because you should understand that interdependency is something that rules the world. It's something that you have to deal with. Interdependency is the sun needs the earth. The earth needs the sun. Like, you know, if the sun doesn't give light, the earth kind of falters, you know? And sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out what the sun needs, because the sun is the thing that we're going around, but I kind of do feel like there's something there. Even if we can't specify it, but the food that you eat, you're interdependent with that, you know, especially if you're growing the food. You have to plant the seeds. You have to prune things and take care of them. As brilliant as the plant kingdom is on its own, and it's very brilliant, but if you were specifically planting things, then you are a steward for that earth, that piece of land, the things that grow on there, and you have a responsibility to figure that out, clear things out, examine things and look at them, but understand that they are having an experience of their own, that they're growing, that they're using the nutrients that you're giving, the time and attention that you're giving, they're using that, and they're going to produce something for you. And this is another thing to be aware of, that you may not get your just dues right exactly at the moment of transaction with somebody, the moment of relativity or interrelationship or interdependence. The moment of that isn't necessarily where you get your thing. It may come later. And so to not feel vengeful or hateful because of that, to not feel like you're not getting your just due, you're not being seen for who you are, that it may come at a later time, and that the purpose of Taurus and Scorpio, for me, how I see it, is to keep your landscape clear so that you can see any disturbances that come up. No illusions, nothing. You know when transformation's coming so you can prepare. You know when things are going to leave because you can see the landscape and how discordant or dysfunctional it is, and then you can make the decision to cut it out. It's more about confrontation as opposed to just letting transformation happen to you. It is about confronting things. That's why I say Scorpio is not deep so much as it is confrontational, and that's what allows it to transmute a lot of things, keeping them head on. And Taurus can do the same thing. It just may not be with the backing behind it of the psyche of a Scorpion. So 7 of Cups. I don't know if you guys listen to the Beatles. I don't really listen to them, but perhaps listening to the Beatles, because this guy looks like Paul McCartney to me. So listening to the Beatles may help. I don't know what's in there. I don't have a specific song like to really give you, but it's probably something in there for you guys. I don't know who has Taurus in their like chart in there, if at all, but like definitely do that. Yeah. Or it could be a romantic movie that deals with some sort of materialism as well. Either the person losing themselves to materialism or gaining a confidence due to materialism to pursue the person that they want. I really don't know, but there may be something that you're watching and viewing this month that is pushing you to assess your own life and strategize. I was going to say de-strategize, perhaps, but declutter and reconfigure and understand that this is helping collective energies move forward. But to not be a slave to doing that for other people and not be a slave to doing it for yourself or needing to change so much all the time. Because another thing with Scorpio is that if you're not transforming in very apparent ways, even though Scorpio would, I mean, they're not dealing with really the subconscious and stuff like that. That would be kind of maybe more Pisces. But if there isn't enough transformation happening, if it isn't in the way that looks totally configured, reconfigured, if there's any remnant that remains of your old life, somehow you have failed and somehow you aren't in touch with real transformation. Sometimes transformation is just one part of your house getting remodeled. Maybe the other parts didn't need it. And so taking stock accurately of what needs to be transformed and not being so quick to have these all-encompassing quests to transform something would be really helpful for you. If you only need to throw out one of the 7 cups, then throw out one of the 7. Like, rarely is it that you have to cut out all 7 unless you've just really lived a life that is leading you completely nowhere and worse, yet it's leading you into situations where you're getting depleted. So there's that. So this is the second part of the reading. I think these are going to be shorter this month. I kind of had a feeling that these would be shorter, and also it might just be better for people in general. Too much. Okay, so we have Avenger along with Winter Wheat. And then we have the Damsel with this color that only has like numbers. I don't know why they did that. They just like, they didn't have names for some of them. They didn't have names. Anyway, so what I'm seeing is that the Avenger part, I kind of feel like doesn't acknowledge that the Damsel and the Avenger can operate in the same space. Like for some reason, it feels like the Avenger is like this deep, dark thing, or this idea that deep and dark is the only way to operate, is the only way to say truth, is the only way to do stuff. It could be like a matter of being rough around the edges in terms of your speech and how you approach people. And that the Avenger kind of looks at the Damsel with, I don't want to say disgust or disdain, but there's a lack of recognition that that the damsel can do anything. The damsel can communicate, or the damsel can express themselves without such ways of being. Like the way of being of the damsel looks weak in comparison, and there's just a seriousness that comes with the Avenger, and kind of a like, I've been through more than you when it comes to the damsel, but I think the Avenger would be wise to recognize that the damsel is a lot more forthcoming with themselves through not only their words but through their actions. I think the Avenger gets caught up in the mental aspect and then doing, but not necessarily allowing their environment to fully reflect what they do, versus the damsel. There's some sort of creative energy that comes through that allows the damsel to fully experience their life, not only in their mind, not only with their body, but with their creations, and then what their creations create in terms of an environment. And that's what Scorpio and Taurus, Venus, Pluto is about. You have to experience it not only in your mind and your body, but in the things that you create that go out into the world and create a landscape and environment for other people, particularly through creative arts and creative developments. And then your ability to receive that in the wider world for yourself. So the Avenger kind of doesn't recognize that the damsel is on their level. The damsel has some things that actually are a lot more cleaned up and refined, because the winter wheat, it's a nice color, but I feel like this one down here with the damsel is just a little bit more refined. That's like what Pixie does. A little more refined, a little less baggage, a little less cloudedness, a little less trying to prove something, and a little more just being creativity, being in their environment, being a person that creates these things, and then being someone who's able to sit in what they create. The Avenger may have trouble accepting what they create or how they perceive what they're creating, things like that. And so those are issues that may need to come to a head to be cleansed and healed and solved in the month of May. So the bridge energy is the athlete. It's right there. And let me read these like light attributes to them, because they are upright. So the Avenger's light attributes is actually a desire to balance the scales of justice, righteousness on behalf of society or oneself. The damsel is understanding the nature of healthy romance, inspires you to rely on yourself. The athlete is dedication to transcending physical limits, including handicaps, development of personal willpower, and strength of spirit. So the damsel has actually tapped into the athlete on many levels, just because they're talking about transcending physical limits. So it's not just a physical thing. It's a mental thing. It's a fully embodied thing versus the Avenger, like I said, it's a mental thing and they put energy out, but I don't think they ever stop to actually look at their environment or look at how they perceive their environment or look at how people are absorbing the things that they put into the environment. There's just a little bit of not seeing that as a blockage, or if you do see it, it's on I was going to say a reptilian brain kind of level, but it's on a level where like you're looking for black and white criticism type thing, criticism or acceptance. There's no gray area. There's no room. Everything is finite and fixed, and I think the damsel is a little bit more allowing of the environment to turn over and change, as opposed to the Avenger, which is very much stuck and unable to accept change. So Taurus is a fixed sign. Venus, therefore, would be under a fixed sign. Libra is cardinal, but they both have sort of difficulties with change. Cardinal would be a lot more able maybe to move forward, but maybe not have that consistency, and so they peter out. They can't deal with the changes of a project from start to the middle, where they would have to kind of acquire skills, reassess skills, and things like that. It may be hard for a cardinal sign to do it because they're so used to beginning things, and a fixed person may pick up that slack. They may not have the idea to start, but they can consistently move through. But when it comes to the mutable part of letting it go and transition, they may not have the best skill set for that. So using the athlete as an archetype would be helpful. I think maybe if you're having difficulties getting out in your environment, physically interacting with your environment, doing repetitive motions over and over, maybe in different areas, noticing how your body changes in those areas, notice how your mind changes in those areas, stepping back after you do something to see the larger picture. So if you're a painter, not being focused on the minute details, step back and see the full composition that you have made. That probably would be helpful. And understanding that there is going to be criticism and there's going to be praise, but you are creating something to put out into the world that is going to shape the world, whether you know it or not. The world is different for you having made this. It didn't exist before, now it does exist, and so the world actually is changed because of that. It may not be changed as in you get $1 million. This is going back to the advice that I said previously with the first reading. It may not mean that, and it may not mean that you're making splashes and waves, but it does mean that the world has been changed in some way because of what you have done. And for you to step back, and this is somebody who may be producing a lot of things but may not be getting the acknowledgement of those things, stepping back and seeing how prolific you have been will help you not be so, because the Avenger comes off as quite bitter in this reading. This one is kind of like not a golden child, but is more accepting of the journey, and can brush it off like a little bit easier versus the Avenger. So I think that's it. Yeah. I think that's it. Comment, like, subscribe to the channel. I hope you enjoyed this Venus reading for May 2021, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.